This is Arc Analysis.
Is it?
This is Arc Analysis.
You serious?
This is Arc Analysis.
Oh, hey. Why not? Let's do it.
Pride of Baghdad.
Right on.
Published by Vertigo, the now defunct Vertigo, DC Comics, 2006. Written by Brian K. Vaughan, Canada's very own, and drawn by Nico Henriken. Henriken, I guess so. So, during the bombing of Iraq's capital, a zoo is blown up, and the story focuses on 4 lions that escape and try to make their own way in their newfound quote-unquote freedom.
Right.
Based on a true story. There are 4 lions that escaped a zoo in Baghdad after an American bombing that went on their own way. We don't know what happened to them, but I know how it ends.
Yes. And I love that they put this quote on the cover: "A brightly covered tragedy as unblinking as the peril faced every day in the real Iraq." USA Today.
Yeah, and it did happen in 2003. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a retelling of, I guess, the in-betweens of a story that we will never really know what happened to these lions. But we know, again, like you said, how it begins and how it ends. And
yeah. It does end by them. Well, I'll just say right now, they are shot by U.S. forces. So they're shot and killed by U.S. forces.
Damn it, Coke. Spoilers.
Yeah, I didn't know that before I read this. But they tell you at the end anyways.
And since we're talking about it, that's what pulled me back into the realist of the comic and kind of the news of it, the realism of it. For me, I got sucked into the story so well that I completely forgot that it was based on a true story. Mm-hmm. And the final 2 panels kind of bring you back down to earth that help bookend what I got to read so much better that I really enjoyed it.
It's really, it's a sad story. It's sad. It's scary. It's
traumatic.
Yeah. I read it as a metaphor mostly, I think, which
you had a completely different take on it, which is awesome.
Yeah, because you can look at it different ways, and it's not right. It's not outright told to you, but it's kind of implied. It can be implied, right?
Yeah.
Interpretation is everything. It could be a story about the 4 lions just making their own way, or it could be a story of the 4 lions representing a small family or a group of Iraqi natives, right? Going through the motions of an actual bombing, which is so depending on how you look at it.
It's real life of Pi.
Yeah.
There you go. Before.
There you go. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, real life of Pi. I was trying to say it's like it kind of changes, but it doesn't really.
It does, because you brought that up to me, and it changed. Because you thought there were certain scenes that were not needed, and I agree with you. I agree with you on the stance of it doesn't progress the plot, but it gives you an understanding of that specific character. We should go into names and all that stuff. We will. But if you flip that to now these are real people, that story has so much more weight that is needed for the story that they're telling, I feel. So are we giving all the spoilers out? Because that's
I'm okay with spoilers. This comic book, I mean, it's 20 years old, right? Like,
fair. Do you want to go through the names, and then we can go through a little bit of character arcs of each of them?
Yeah, Safa, Zil, Nur, and Ali are the 4 lions. But we're talking about perspectives. I'll talk about where they all come from, right?
Well, I just want to say Zil is the lion, and the male. The male. I was gonna say the paternal, but the child, which is
Ali,
is not of his pride.
No.
Sarah?
Safa is the old one.
Safa, okay, so
the old woman,
right? And then Noor is the
woman,
is the mother of Ali. So it's a blended family, which is awesome.
Yeah, and there's 4 different perspectives, right? There's the grizzled older woman who knew what it was, who knew what it used to be like before they were in captivity.
Correct.
And she doesn't want to go back to that.
Correct.
There's the male
for reasons.
Yeah, there's the male who's Zil, who was happy to just go along with whatever. He's pretty laid back, right? He kind of is like,
for reasons.
for reasons. And then there's the innocent child, Ali, and then the female who wants.
Whose perspective is what bright-eyed bushy tail, right? Like kind of
Right.
excited for this new adventure, and this is all new to him. So everything kind of still has a shine to it, and he
And
learns real fast. That's not true.
and then there's Noor, the female who wanted more for life. She definitely has the most ambition. She wants
Yes,
more than what this is. She's trying to make packs with like monkeys and what were they called? The
gazelles.
gazelles. He's trying to
Yes,
make packs with them. Like, how do we break out of here? With
and the most jealous of Safa.
yes, yeah, they have a rivalry, don't they? The two
Well,
females.
it's not necessarily a rivalry as much as Zil is getting his way with both of them.
Yeah, we don't know how. So we don't know how long that's been going on, right? Because there's some weird moments where it's like, okay, he's going off with Newer, and then Ollie's like, oh, that's what you used like.
Yeah, he smashed both of them.
Yeah, he smashed both of them, but I guess it used to be Safa and now it's Newer, so it's kind of switched up.
Yeah.
I don't know why you just like. This is where it gets kind of crossed to me because it's like, are they? We were talking about this before we started recording, but I was like, are they people or are they animals?
Sure.
And where's the line? Because there's things that happen that people would not do, but then there's things that happen that lions would not do. So that's where I was kind of having the disconnect.
What do you think
Um,
people wouldn't do?
like when Zill stands up,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, this is what we're gonna do, and then Newer's like, oh, let's go, let's go bone, and then they just kind of leave the kid and start boning,
That would happen all the time.
and then Ali was like, oh, that's what you guys used to do, and I was like, that's
So
weird. That's more of a
the
lion thing. That's a lion thing to me. To
fair,
me.
but here's me arguing the innocence of a child to just speak his mind, so he can pick up stuff but not really know the context of it. One, two, the young happy horny couple that now has a babysitter to watch the child would definitely sneak off. It may not happen this brash, but it'd definitely be like, can you watch the kid for like 5-10 minutes? Two, and then three, the old lady that gets stuck with the kid because you've not served your purpose, but basically got dumped. Like, what are you gonna do? Run off? Like, you still have that maternal instinct that you're not gonna let this kid just be out here all alone. But you're still angry the fact that like I was in that position. So I do think it would happen. Maybe not as fast and as quick, as swift as lions.
Right, that's the thing. But then it's also kind of like very like what's the right word for this? Chauvinistic in the sense that like, oh, the man's taking charge. Let's go fuck right now. No, let's go right now. And it's like that's what I mean. So if that's a lion thing, I get it.
But
'Cause they're
wasn't it
just
wasn't it
animals.
Nor that like when I don't know if Zill puts his foot down, that's when Nor gets like
Turned
attracted
on
to,
in immediately.
and she calls to action to be like, "You're coming with me
Let's
now."
go right now.
Is
Yeah.
there another scene where like Zill calls out to like come bang one of those chicks or lions earlier? Okay, so that happens in human behavior more times than any of us will care to mention. That's why it pays to be a nonchalant guy. If you have low expectations, when good things happen to you, you're like, great. When they don't, you're like, well, I wasn't expecting anything. So the fact that a woman saw a man put his foot down in a situation and she got put in her place definitely sparked something in her that like now's the time. So I could see that happening with
I don't buy
humans
it. I don't buy it. I don't because I'm not.
because she
I'm
called the
not
shots.
putting my.
That's why.
It's
She
just
called the
no.
shots.
It's just it's the way it's written is weird. You don't find that weird? You're in a
I mean,
country full. If they're so okay, here it goes back to the beginning. You were
sure.
reading it as lions.
Right.
I was reading it as kind of like I'm not sure if these are lions or people.
Fair.
Lions thing, like I said, makes perfect sense.
Okay.
They're just animals. But then when they start acting like humans, it's like that's I don't. I think you'd be more aware of the situation you're in, being bombed and stuff, to just like in the middle of the day, like you're not even in a safe place yet. You're just in the forest. I
Okay.
think that's weird. I think that's weird. I
I
don't
think that's
really,
weird, but
yeah,
we have the benefit of not being in a war torn country. One.
exactly. Yeah.
Two, moments of when your life is in distress or you're in danger. I don't have the words.
Adrenaline gets you going like when you rob a bank. Yeah, that's a different situation though. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
But it's not a different situation, right? So you can see how like
I would argue it is a very different situation.
we're arguing now, so it's all good. But that's I think the gem of the comic. They're in a situation where it's pretty dire, so we may not get another opportunity to go at it. So I can see her being like, "It's kind of now or never." And I've never seen you more attractive than I've seen you right now. Since you put me in my place, come, let's go do something about it. I can definitely see that happening to humans. And 3, you said this is animal behavior, but name a better animal than humans. Like we're all guilty of animalistic behavior. So
but I see it as a representation of like how like any woman would react. Like that wouldn't happen. I don't think that would like. Oh, a man steps up and then a woman reacts. And it's like I don't know about that, man. I think that's especially in front of your kid. It's fucking weird. That's animal behavior, lion behavior. I don't.
you're saying most women wouldn't act like that, or all women wouldn't act like this, and that's fair to say. But you can't say every woman wouldn't act like this. You can't say that there's you say it's probably not going to be the overall popular vote for a woman to act like this given the circumstances. I'm saying while that could be true, you can't discredit any woman for deciding, oh, this guy finally put his foot down. He finally showed me that he was a man and he wanted to take charge. That's the most attractive that he's been. Let me go talk to him privately, and something happens. I'm saying that's happened more times than less times.
For sure, but not in this situation. It's like it's kind of just the. I don't believe this. I don't think this is believable. You do. Everything the way it's going, I don't think that would happen.
If they were humans.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the exact situation they are placed in, the exact situation. War-torn country, on the run out in the wild. Your child's with you. All of a sudden, you just go off the bang. That's kind of my point. Yes, could it happen? Absolutely.
Would it happen? Yeah.
Is it likely? No. But that's why when you're like, oh, different apartment complexes, and you leave your kid over here, of course, that's way more. That increases the chances of it happening. But they're not. That's not the situation.
My whole point is, well, not my whole point, but the fact that it's a war-torn country, the circumstances and the mindset is going to be completely different than what we can pull from. So I can't say if I was in completely under duress, I wouldn't want to have sex with this beautiful single mother for one last time.
Well said. That's a very good point too. But then it comes down to like, yeah, I can't get past the
where your priorities.
What are your priorities? But I can't get past as a reader. Is it a metaphor? Or is it people? Or is it lions? That was distracting me the whole book.
Well, you have 3, right? It could be a metaphor, it could be actually people, or it could just be the lion story, right?
Yeah, I believe it's a metaphor, but it was. Yeah. But then they'd act like animals at some points, and it's like I don't know what's going on here. But maybe that's the point.
But isn't the metaphor the example to prove a point that like even animals will have the same sort of problems that humans would have in the same sort of situation?
But that's why I brought up Lion King earlier, because in Lion King, they're lions. That's not a metaphor for people being lions. Can it be interpreted as one? Sure, but it's lions going about their liony business in like a traumatic situation. This is lions in a very human experience, but they could also be lions. But they're acting this way, they're acting that way. I don't know. It was just.
So that's easy for you to say, but I've always looked at Lion Kings as the metaphor for Black people, because that's the one time that we were supposed to get our Disney presents and didn't. Like they were doing Disney presences up until I guess 95, and then they went to Lions. That's when they decided to go to Africa. So and then look at the voice casting, except for Matthew Broderick, which is the voice casting. But you have James Earl Jones and I think it's Maggie Sinclair as your mother and father, and they're very boisterous, powerful, and strong Black voices in that movie, right? So while I think it's great that you can say that, like, well, Disney came this way and it's not going to be a metaphor for anything, Lion King ended up being a surrogate before we got Princess and the Frog. Like, that was, Black people saw more of themselves in Lion King than they got to see in, like, Little Mermaid or Hercules or Mulan. Even though there are Black voices in all of those movies.
Right, but I think we're talking about two different things.
Now we're all over the place.
We're talking. When I brought up Lion King, I was saying like they are acting like lions. Whether it's a metaphor for, like you were saying, placeholders for people of color getting or Black people getting a chance as a Disney princess, that's different. I'm just saying is like they're acting like lions. They're chasing.
But is the sex the only time that you feel like they're acting like humans? Or it happens multiple. Okay,
no.
So let's go into the story.
Because even like when they meet the bear, they're talking about like, let's go into
the story. Because I want you to bring up those moments, and then I can kind of contrast and compare how much it seems like a metaphor. Because I'm totally happy that you brought that up before you even started the podcast. Of like, this could be actually people that kind of blew my mind. because I liked reading this, even though it was uncomfortable. It was kind of dire, and it's spoiler alert, not a happy ending. I thought it was a great read. Like
Yeah, no, it's
I
and
got
yeah,
invested in the characters and what happens to it, so I
yeah.
enjoyed that about it. But the fact that you added this dynamic of like, these could be people, and then we started talking about Life of Pi, I was like, motherfucker, like I had those oh shit moments where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, Coke maybe stumbled on things, but now we're having this very not heated, but a very boisterous discourse about can it be people? I still think it can, but I understand your not apprehension, but like you shouldn't mix back and forth. Like if they're going to be lions, they should stay lions. If you're
So
telling that
yeah,
story, if
so
they're going to be humans and you're telling me a parable using lions, you have to remember to stay on that, and that could be on the writer. But I can't wait to hear the next part where you're like, this is more human than lions.
well for yeah, so for example, like there's the part where they see the tanks.
No, no, well, like we'll go through it. Like we just started.
For the part where they see the tanks, like tanks roll in, they have no idea what they are. They don't even know they're vehicles, or like these are just these monsters. So that's a lion thing. But yeah, the turtle. We'll get to the turtle too. But I'm saying like they meet the lion, they see the tanks, and they're acting like lions. Like, oh, what?
Do you want my pushback? I can't remember the name. They have like the animals have a name for it, but there had to have been a time in any country where a giant machine rolled in and you had no fucking idea what it was.
But wouldn't Safa know?
Did she?
Of all, if any of them, she's been around for a long time. She knows about wars. She's being like,
But different wars. I don't know if she's come through. Like the turtles. The turtles had to tell them about what I wish I had the name for like they call them something like the ground thunder or something like that, right? And a whole different sound, a whole different feel.
yeah. But then they're not surprised by like jets, but they're surprised by tanks, right? Then like when they come across a carcass of a human, they debate about whether to eat it or not. That could be like that's believable in the sense that like maybe if you're so hungry you have to resort to cannibalism as a
Yeah,
human, but
that's
they
fair.
don't
That one's
mention
fair.
if that was the case.
That one's fair. That one's fair. I'll give you that
If
one.
that was the case, wouldn't that just be a dead animal, and then they have to resort like what
Well, they didn't.
or
And that's the thing. They passed up a dead animal for a dead
yeah
human. Anyway,
yeah.
let's go through the story. It's a really good story, right? And I don't want to be
But
undercutting
no,
you before.
you were asking about like the contrast. That's why I was kind
I'm
of
with you, and I agree on some of the things you're saying. I enjoy this, but I want to go through it. I actually want to go through this beat by beat because so many fun things happen, right? Like just even talk about the deal with the monkeys and how that blows up in their face, like immediately.
what do the monkeys represent? A different town.
Yeah,
Like
different gang.
this is my problem. Like I was like, what I was trying to analyze everything, but like
Sure,
maybe if I just read it, maybe I'd enjoy it. Like, and I did enjoy this. By the way, I didn't hate this. Maybe I enjoyed it more if I just took it at face value and didn't dig deep.
any of the neighboring countries of Iraq would not.
But then they're on a zoo, so are they? Like that's what I don't know. I was having trouble connecting.
Sure, but like so, like I can try and find a rationale for each thing just because like that's how my brain works and want to do it. Not everything will be believable, but there are ways around it, right? So if there's a refugee complex and not necessarily it's all Baghdadians and Iraqis, but it's people from neighboring countries that all got stuck in this one spot.
Perfect. Yeah.
That could be a thing, right? But it's very easy to see monkeys as a different race than lions. Like that's
And gazelles.
both in the animal kingdom and in like human characteristics, right? Like you and I would not be from the same animal kingdom. That's fair. Doesn't mean I love you less. Just means we're gonna scrap if we need to scrap.
I don't disagree. I was.
Well, we have stuff to talk about the comic. Safa's backstory definitely talks about how when she was around her kin and those of her same animal kingdom, it didn't always work out the best, right? So who's to
Yeah.
say you shouldn't mix? Is this you trying to support interracial animals or interspecies animals?
I didn't think about that once in this comic. The turtle. You're talking about the turtle.
Well, when we jumped away, I really want to talk about like how we get a brief intro of like who the lions are, and immediately a rocket explodes a giraffe's head, and we're in it.
Oh, that was the best animated giraffe head blowing up. That was great.
And it literally is like the heavens are opening. The old ones have heard our prayers. They're coming to, and an explosion. It's just 3 panels. It's just like, and then the lions are like move. So like it doesn't. This book doesn't take any time for it to let us know it's not safe where we are. We have to go. Even after we got kind of slight indications of each lion's kind of MO, right? Like some of them like being coddled and given food, but everyone's kind of radar went up when a whole donkey ends up in their pen and like we never get fed this much after we already got fed, right? So they're like, what's up? So already something's changed and now shit's hitting the fan.
Yeah, and then they're out in the wild, and the first thing they run into is that turtle.
Okay, so we're skipping over monkeys. Okay, yeah.
Oh, the monkeys. Yeah, yeah. You want to go beat for like every single part?
I kind of enjoy any type of new animal encounters the lions because we get a different dynamic of what happens with them. At least with the monkeys, there's a fight. There's peace made, peace broke.
Mm-hmm.
They steal a cub. They attempt to brand him, and then Safa comes and saves the day, which is pretty awesome.
The lion with the most experience, who didn't want to leave in the first place, is the one who ends up saving the day. Yeah.
They come across a gazelle, and this is the moment where they can attack because it's without its pack, and they make the collaborative decision to be like, no, this is not the time, and we've already made peace.
Reluctant decision.
Well, they're now deciding if it's smarter to eat now while we know we can get food in this exploding zoo, or we can test our limits out in the wild unknown, right? So you get different dynamics from each lion, and ultimately decide to let the gazelle go, which I feel like is definitely a humanistic quality. Not that I'm going back to like if they're humans or not. I just appreciated that there was a moment where, after this crazy fight, where she eats like 6 monkeys, kind of thing, but the rest of them don't get to eat.
Yeah.
They all decide like this gazelle needs to go find its either other herd or like make it on its own. It's not going to die by their hands. So like I enjoyed that moment in that book. Turtle.
Yeah, they meet the turtle, who I think is my favorite character in the whole book.
You love turtles.
I do normally, but I do like him because he's like that grizzled, like cranky old man with the heart of gold type thing.
Name a grouchy, like we can name several grouchy turtles that we've read along the ways or seen in movies, right? So there's either Land Before Time. Wait, not Land Before Time.
Land Before Time. Well, that dinosaur was turtle-y. He wasn't really a turtle, but I'll give you that one.
It was a slip of the tongue. I was trying to say Never Ending Story because it's the turtle that tells them about the nothing, and then we just read Wix. What's the Wix story called?
Oh, shoot.
With Atlas, and I'll name everybody else.
Scurry.
But that was also a grizzled turtle in there. So that seems to be a good theme of if you want to tell time or have an aged sage, wise sort of begrudging curmudgeon. I used a lot of words there. I don't know if any of them make sense.
I don't think they make sense together.
One makes sense. Usually they go to a turtle, which is amazing. That seems to be the one trope that has stood the test of time throughout most of pop culture.
They live for a long time, right? I think that's probably why, because they can live like 100 years easily, like tortoises. So they kind of they're wise, right?
They've been around.
Yeah. It's kind of like the wise owls and the wise turtles.
I do
they meet him.
And he named the river Tigris.
That's the name of the river, right?
Yeah. The lions think that the turtle is calling them a tiger. They're like, we're not tigers. We're lions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the river. It has a name.
That's right. And we get the flashes. I like how he's telling his story, not to them, but to the reader.
Yes.
So the reader gets the flashbacks, and he's being vague about what happened with his
herd,
his situation. His family basically got killed by the goings on with the war, right?
Yeah, and that one panel shows like it looks like oil eventually got to them, or like sludge or something like that. So it could have been like fallout from something else that was bigger, and this was just the collateral damage.
And being a turtle, he couldn't reach them, right? His family, as they basically drowned, or suffocated, whatever you want to say. But
it's a great page, by the way. Too.
Yeah, he doesn't tell the lions that, but he tells the readers that, and he's kind of just like, yeah, well, you're all doomed, so you might as well just get on your way, type thing, right? Like, but I liked how because you could tell he cared, but he was just he had no answers, right? I think he cared, yeah.
I just think nobody visited him in a long time, so it's like, oh, somebody new, all right, here's what it is.
Yeah,
the real sucks.
Like he cares about himself more, but
that's more human than anything else.
Yeah, but then eating monkeys isn't, right? So it's like
it's a delicacy somewhere.
This is where we
delicacy somewhere. I get you. Monkey brains.
You know what? Actually, my notes are more about my thoughts on this comic, not the because we don't usually do like the step-by-step stuff.
Sometimes.
Not in a while.
Sure. You definitely hit the turtle on that one, man. Well, not in a while. I was like, I guess not, buddy. We have not done that in a while. When was the last time? I was like, I don't know.
When's the last time?
Not the last AA.
I love how like does my voice really come across that roachy? Like
Listen, we started this off that people be like, "Is this the last show that these guys are doing?" Because we
yeah,
definitely took stances, but I enjoy that because not often do we get to read the same material and pull completely different ideologies from it. And I don't think we have completely different ideologies, but we're sitting at a spot where you can take it and interpret it a couple different ways, and that's amazing writing or amazing storytelling or amazing art or a combination of all three. So I'm gonna keep prodding and poking you because this seems to be the only time they would do it, and we've already passed the normal amount of time that we spend on books that were like it was good.
yeah. Well, we usually agree on everything, and I don't
No, we
necessarily.
don't.
Yes, we do.
Doesn't work if we both scream coke.
I
Only one
don't.
of us.
What's interesting about this is I don't think either one of us actually hated it.
No, we're
It's
both
just
gonna have the same
we
results.
just read it different ways
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
interpret it different ways, and that's
and it's
rare for
great,
us.
and it's great. So after they meet the turtle, then the tanks come in, right? And so
Yep.
it's a moment of sheer terror because they've never seen anything like this. But this is the moment where Safa and Ali are off to themselves while Zil and Noor went to go smash in the bush.
Mm-hmm. They came back after this is right after, right?
No, this is so they.
Oh, this is after the tanks they get into. Oh, okay, that's even weirder. Yeah, okay.
No, they leave and then the tanks come so that they come back, right? Like
Oh,
the
okay.
two that are there that
Yeah.
see the tanks go look for them. But
Okay.
like we're missing the point that they leave this war torn zoo and it's all like rubble and exploding and dire and animals are getting exploded and dying and fighting and they walk into what looks like an oasis, right? Like there's a moment where the color palette completely changes. It's all green and beautiful and there's a sign of hope and like peace and this could be a new life. And I feel like all of that is leading to the decisions that help them smash in the middle of this green lushness, right? Because this is the happiest that they're ever going to be in this book when there's so much hope. It looks like we can survive out here and it's going to be okay. Little do they know, they meet fucking Turtle on the Tigris and tanks start rolling in. So shit hits the fan almost immediately that Nora only gets one nut and she wants another one. She's like, let's go again. And he's like, no, I don't have time.
That's
So like
right.
I
Yeah,
laughed at
I forgot
that,
about
right?
that.
Like,
You're right. Yeah.
so like I want you to put in context that like they got out of a worse situation and they thought it was completely the end of it to see like what looks like an oasis and looks like peace and safety and finally the man of her dreams kind of does the one thing that she's been waiting for to do. There's a little, I feel like there's a little wiggle room, right? At least for the listeners. I really want everyone else to read this and be like, nah, these guys wouldn't have sex, like you're wrong, Dank, or like Coke, there's a little wiggle room, they get some sex. But at this point, tanks are now here. So like nobody's having sex anymore. And now they're running. They're running.
They come across like a town that's just like wrecked. Just
Desolate.
wrecked.
So you
Yeah.
leave this lush, beautiful forest that potentially could have been your home to go directly into what I assume is Baghdad. And Baghdad is now
Mm-hmm.
war torn and evacuated. And I like that there's a one statue in the middle of the city, but you just got it's. I like how they painted it because it's on like a Dutch angle, which is askewed. So like it doesn't even look as happy as it would if you looked at it through normal eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has a tinge to be like, this is not the world that we thought it was going to be, right? So they're walking through, and then you get more of their dynamic as this surrogate family together.
Yeah, and then there's the part where they come across, like I said, the dead body, the
Mhm.
human body, and they're kind of debating whether to eat it or not.
Right.
On the principle, like Safa doesn't want to, in the principle that these people were good to us. Why
Right.
would we eat them? Whereas Zill's kind of like, but I'm hungry.
Yeah. So I like that as a metaphor of like Safa is judging all people with the same paintbrush,
Mhm.
which is one way to live life. And Nora's smart enough to be like, but not every person should be judged through that same ruler.
Yeah,
Now, the result of that is completely different. It's not necessarily eating a dead body, but I do like the pull of they both have completely different ideologies of what to do when, like, they're not all thinking with the same brain, which is amazing in a journey story.
yeah. No, but then they come across, instead of these white horses, these
Right.
wild horses that they want to eat instead because that's more their appetite, right?
And like the chase of the hunt and like the whole
Yeah.
fresh kill.
Especially for Noor, right? That's what she's been wanting. She wants to
Yep.
hunt, so she's like, let's do it.
Hunt, yep.
And they chase them into this. like this. I almost said enclosure. It's not enclosure. They chase her into this building
It's like
where
a
this,
palace. Yeah.
where that massive black bear is. Like just like comically how it's
Yeah.
hilarious how big
It's
he
huge.
is.
Yeah.
Um, then they find another lion chained up, and he's dying.
Yeah.
They're like,
What
how
did you
could
think when? So she first goes in and she sees like the giant portrait of the lion.
mhm,
She doesn't know what to make of it, but like for a lion to see another lion being
in painting? Yeah,
yeah, like on a pedestal essentially, you would think like okay, this could be a safe haven, right? Like it's not like if you saw a giant picture of I don't know Brett Favre, you'd be like okay, this is a safe place. No,
mm,
little stretch, little stretch. I was gonna say
uh,
Rogers. You'd be like, oh,
no,
this
Rod.
place gonna suck.
They're both
This place
colored with
gonna
the same
suck.
cloth. They're both
There's no way they're colored with the same. That's a completely different discussion. There's no way they're
no
the
in the
same
way
cloth.
that like I used to love them, and now I'm kind of like
Okay. No,
they're not
they're both
really safe. They're not really safe places for me anymore.
they're both losers, but in completely different ways. One is a
Yeah,
smart
yeah.
loser, and one's an opportunistic loser. You, I'll let the audience decide which is
Decide
which,
who's
but
who. Yeah.
you should know.
My feeling about them. Maybe you should have said like Bart Star. Then that's like okay.
That's your go-to.
That's a safe one. The first two.
I hate that we've given this much Packer knowledge on a goddamn podcast. You guys suck.
Super Bowl 45. Yeah. So they go in there. So you said there's a big painting lion, and further in they find a lion chained to a wall,
Yeah.
kind of like a dungeon, and he's dying.
Yeah, he's like white, thin, like you see his ribs and just like shattered essentially, but like hanging on, but flies
And
around.
it comes down to like how could the handlers, what are they all call them different things, but how could the handlers do this to him?
Just
And I'm in my mind I'm kind of like easy, it's he's a pet
Mhm.
chained to the wall. But then like my interpretation of that was originally that until the bear shows up, and he even mentions like I've been
eating his
eating
food.
him. So I was like, okay, so it's not really the people doing it, they've chained him to the wall and put him in that situation, but the bear is actually doing all the damage, right?
But at this point, you can metaphor a bear as a person to be like a very dangerous human.
Of course I could. That's what really messed me up, because he was even saying like he was even talking like they had drastically politically different views, right? He's like, "Oh, you all come in here and think you can just do whatever," and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this sounds like the right and the left
Yeah,
in the U.S., right?
sure,
That's what it sounds like. No, it
sure.
doesn't. This is not about that. It's more about what's going down in Iraq, but and that again is kind of like, okay, well, they're acting like lions. They're being surprised about the lion painting. Then they see the lion chained up. They don't know what's going on. But then this bear is talking very human. So you understand where I'm kind of like
Yeah, yep,
throughout the
yep.
story, I'm like losing focus and like, what is okay? So what's this metaphor? And I'm overanalyzing things, absolutely. But I also agree, it's like,
But that's
well,
that's the fun of it. You want a
yeah,
comic that you can go a little deeper on, right?
yeah. But I kept getting mixed messaging, right?
What was the note that you wrote about the bear?
I didn't write notes about the bear.
Okay.
It just kind of it devolves into like me like thinking like hoping the lions would act less like people in line aesthetics, so it was it was difficult for me to connect with the characters in a way that I wanted to. And then I have this one line at the end that I think I want to save to the end,
Sure.
because I think this will hit you, or I can just say it now
Whatever.
since
What do
we're
you
almost
want
at
to
the
do?
end anyways. I honestly think this would have been like a perfect comic if it was silent,
Oh,
no dialogue whatsoever.
I agree with everything, but the only thing that we would miss is the dissension and then the ultimate like togetherness of Noor and Safa's relationship. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's the strongest one in the book.
But great art would be able to overcome that, right?
Yeah, but like I like the fact
Paneling.
that when they're running to chase the lions, it's just them two doing it, right? Like Ali's
Oh,
useless because
the
he's a boy.
horses.
Yeah, sorry, whatever I said. And Zil doesn't do it because male lions don't hunt, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like, there's even a little bit of emasculation on that.
yeah.
He gets to return on that when he inevitably comes to save the day battling the bear. But when they're running Nora and Safa, they're trading off like bars of just like, oh, like Safa is impressed with Nora, like she's faster than him, and like giving her compliments, but like still very much closed hearted and won't let her sit on that compliment and give an insult to like back like if you tell anybody I'll kill you, I'll rip out your heart, right? Like she goes back to that uh survival mode. And then we didn't even talk why she's based on that survival mode, right? Like her flashback is to why she loves being in. Like 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 she loves be in a safe enclosure was when she was in the wild. She got raped by like a pack of lions.
Yeah.
I think it would have been stronger if they used a different animal other than lions. But again, that helps kind of reaffirm that you can't even trust your own kin. So that's
Hmm.
another lesson that you can put on that. But she lost one of her eyes to a lion that wanted to rape her, and obviously it happened. So you get, and that's one of the things that you said you couldn't include, but I appreciated that they did include it, especially if you want to add the dynamic of if it's humans or not. But the fact that her story is raw and unfiltered for what's happening in this current story that we get to join along is those moments help build out why she's so apprehensive for like falling in with his family. Like it's hard to trust after you've been so wronged by the people closest to you or the people that look like you, right? So while I agree that no words would have been a strong comic, what I ultimately believe is another thing that you said, that this book is trying to say and talk about a lot of themes that you wouldn't normally get through animals, and maybe it's a softer blow with animals as opposed to trying to tell the story with Baghdadians, if I'm saying that right, or Iraqis, because that's a harder pill to swallow. If we had to read a book about this old grizzled woman who's trying to take care of this new kid, but we get a flashback to like why her life sucks in Baghdad.
Hmm.
But I pulled up an article and it gives a little breakdown if of what those that get paid to do this thought about this book. If you want to hear that.
Good.
Almost a decade after its initial release, Brian K. Vaughan and Nico Hitchenson's Pride of Baghdad is still heartbreaking. The graphic novel recounts the fall of Baghdad during the 2003 American invasion as seen through the eyes of the pride of a lion that fled the Baghdad Zoo. It's inspired by a true story of real lions that escaped during the chaos, but the comic adds a mythical feel to the story. The story follows Zil, the alpha male of the pride, the elderly lioness Safa, the idealistic Noor, and her young cub Aili. And let me just go to the good part, which is the lions make their way through the collapsing of Baghdad in search of food and water. They meet their old herder in the Euphrates River, a creature of old enough to remember a century's worth of bloodshed in the cradle of civilization. It's about losing your wife, your kids, everything worthless friend you've ever made. The cranky old reptile tells the lions. Through their journey, the lions explore Iraq's history and see its monuments and marketplaces. They wander through the halls of one of Uday Hussein's decadent palaces. So one of Hussein's palaces is really cool. Think of it as a straightforward family survival tale combined with a smart political allegory. But though the story is about animals, it's not for kids. It's violent, it's bloody, and has a rape flashback. So all the stuff that we talked about. But I did like the fact that they talked about that what we couldn't put together. It's a political allegory, right? So it's definitely about different views now pushed to the brink. And the one line that I liked right here, Safa, the old lioness, had lived a life in the wild and has scars to remind her of the savannah's brutality. She becomes accustomed to captivity, seeing the zookeepers as a source of food and security. She represents pro Batha party Iraqis, while who perhaps may not love with Saddam prefer the devil they know as opposed to the new one. And then they go into Noor, the young lioness, enter captivity at a young age and hardly remembers the wild. Growing up in cages, she yearns for freedom and the chance to see the world outside. She represents those Iraqis who tore down Saddam's statue, idealistic and full of hope for the future. So the article was smart enough to pull the metaphors that you initially saw but couldn't bridge whether or not it was completely animal or completely human. They act as kind of a way to understand what Baghdad had been going through at that time with two major parties that want to see their world survive, but in a war torn world, like no world really survives. And then we didn't even get to the ending, right? So they take down the bear after this brutal fight, which is pretty damn good. Um, and they make their way, I guess, up a horizon, like up a
A
cliff, I
rooftop.
guess.
Yeah, it's like a
Rooftop,
rooftop.
right? And they get to see the horizon, and it's one of the most beautiful panels in the book because the perspective is amazing. You get to see the entire city of Baghdad, but the monochromatic hue of just like the sunset and the orange beams of the yellows is just a great look. And this is the moment in the book that you feel the most hope for everybody. Like they've weathered the biggest storms that you thought they're gonna entail, right? And they can finally relax. And it's even Ali with like, is this the horizon? This is probably the first time he's ever seen the horizon. And Zilla's
It
like,
was,
yes,
yeah.
it is.
Yeah, because
Yes, it is.
there's a through line throughout the comic about what they're talking about the horizon, how much he wants to see it, right? What's the horizon? And like
Finally gets to see it. And it's not a minute later that you hear crack. And it's the heart wrenching ending of crack, 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 crack. U.S. military forces coming to eradicate these four lines. So heartbreaking if you were, because they the one panel where they show, I think it's Nor just get, or Safa get riddled with bullets, and they don't really pull any punches with it. And I really like the whole, after they slay out all the lions, the next panel is you just see the shoulder of the troop, and he says Jesus Christ, but you see the American flag patch. It's like, ooh, and then you see the rest of the troops walk in. And again, I love the final two panels that give words, because after the gunshots and the soldiers walk through and take out all the lions, you see in April of 2003, four lions escaped the Baghdad zoo during the bombing of Iraq. The starving animals were eventually shot and killed by U.S. soldiers. There were other casualties as well. That's the moment where it snapped back in that this was a real story for me. Like, this was based on a true story, that this was not just for my entertainment, but that's the larger metaphor. Like, if you feel ways about the lions, imagine the countless amount of people that are just going through this constantly.
Yeah, this exact thing, this similar thing, things worse than this thing. Yeah, it's.
So I don't think you're wrong. I just don't think they did it in a way that it was as streamlined as it would make sense and easier for a reader to digest. But I think that's probably the point, because What About War is ever streamlined and A, B very clear. It's usually really messy and a lot of times convoluted, and more times than not, it's all the wrong people that end up with all of the destruction and torture and trauma than the ones that have put them in that position. So it's a really good read.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I have my hangups for it, but it's well crafted. It plays out well, and like we said, nobody's really sure what happened with those lions, right? In between when they escaped the zoo and when they got shot by troops. So it's interesting to fill the gaps in a certain way. I did say the bear, like when the bear was talking to them about like, your people did this and you can't. I was like, this is definitely politically charged. I just don't understand the parties and the dissection that happens over there, because I'm ignorant to that. Living,
we just don't know.
I just don't know. Yeah. There's something about ignorance. Like, I just don't know what's going on over there. But I could tell that there was a politically charged message within the dialogue of the bear, especially, and Safa and Nur. Right, there was the belief system was one who's been through it doesn't want to go back. Like you said, that was the devil that you do know.
That's why I appreciate the writing for this. Although, again, to what you're saying, it could have been stronger. You really could have hit and bang us over with what you're trying to tell us, but they decided to keep the foot off the gas, I guess, to help the plot progress smoother and not make it so depressing off rip. But you can't, like, you say ignorant, and I use ignorant in a word of like you're knowingly ignoring something, and I don't think that's ignorance. I feel like if this is a way for you to want to know more about a lot of bloodshed that's happened around the world, this is definitely a good book that you'd be like, I wonder what this meant, and Googled. And listen, I pulled one article of several articles talking about this book, and we found a couple quotes that probably understood things a little more because they had smarter people and people that understood the area and what was going on, and probably people of that region to help disseminate it. But there's enough there that you're unsettled after reading it. Like, you don't sit like, oh, okay, that was a good book, I'm gonna go jump into Spider-Man now. Like,
no. I was done for the day.
Yeah, I had to sit with it, and there's a strength in that. Like, this book's more important now that you know, not necessarily what it's trying to say, but where it's circling. Like, we may not get to the drain, but we're definitely circling it, and I enjoyed that about that. So
yeah, well said. And like, for the point of this podcast and discussions, like, I could have gone and Googled what all this meant and what all
Sure.
this, but I purposely didn't because I was like, you know what, I want to come at this top like just a raw perspective from me. Not didn't even know that you and I would have read it differently, so that was fun.
Mhm.
That was fun for us to discuss because it's like you said before, it's like not quite heated. We weren't heated, but
But we had
there was
perspective, and it's
we have
definitely worth
perspective. Yeah,
sharing. Yeah.
yeah, and it's good to know. Like I do want to know more about it, right? Because this is
Mhm.
real. This is real life. This is real. This is real stuff that's happening. It's just the way it was delivered to me confused me a bit because I was getting mixed messaging, right?
Hey
So
man, war's confusing. War does not make sense,
yeah,
especially in this AI world where we could just be sending robots out to fight each other, like Rock'em Sock'em robots. The fact that we're still using people and that there's so much unnecessary casualties in that is just that's
over
the biggest
what? Over
that's
the
the biggest
what?
crime. Like if you want to sign up for war to go shoot somebody and someone wants to sign up for war to go shoot you, fine. You two should be shooting at each other. But everybody in the middle, they didn't sign up for that shit. So
If
we
you
rate this.
we rate these on a good or bad basis, boom for good, bah for bad, whoosh for what I just read, you're gonna be so mad at me. But I'm gonna give it a whoosh.
That was my
I'm gonna give
joke.
it
It's
a
like
whoosh.
you're gonna be like whoosh.
I'm gonna give it a whoosh. I'm cheating and giving it a whoosh because I couldn't connect the way I wanted to. I really wanted to.
I feel like that's the benefit of not being in a war torn country. You'll
Exactly.
never
Yeah.
connect with this, right?
Yeah.
So I'll help strengthen your whoosh. There's a boo.
Boom.
There's an easy boo.
Boom.
I'm this opinionated and argumentative and engaged with it, and it's something that I never thought I would get to read based on what it is. The
Really
fact that
cool. I did not. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no, go.
When I pulled this one, I was just like, "That sounds cool." And it's Brian K. Vaughan. Sure, lions in a zoo. I did not know where this was going. I was like, went a completely different way. I did not realize what I was getting into, what we were getting into.
I would love to see this as in another medium, whether it be TV show or movie or animated. I feel you can do more work and more justice with the voices and the stories of people that aren't normally heard from using what you decide to use for this comic, being lions. So yeah, boom.